It feels like summer is officially here. We're getting ready to think about summer camp and transitions and hellos and goodbyes and vacations, and it's just great to be together to welcome Shabbat and welcome summer together as this long holiday weekend begins. A couple of days ago, one of my kids asked me when Memorial Day became a national holiday and what it was designed to commemorate, and I realized that I didn't really know the answer. So I looked it up. I did a little bit of reading to find out about the origin of this holiday weekend. The first thing that I discovered was that our country has observed this holiday in some form since the end of the Civil War. The historians don't exactly know when it took hold on a national level, but their best guess is that it started in 1868. At that time, they called the holiday Decoration Day because it was observed as a time to decorate the graves of fallen soldiers. The name Memorial Day wasn't really used commonly until after the Second World War. In 1967, federal law made that name official, and in 1971, President Nixon declared it a federal holiday. So it's been a very long time that our nation has felt and upheld this pressing need to remember those we have lost. Obviously, on one level, it is a basic human instinct to mourn our dead collectively. But in a narrower sense, it is striking to notice the way in which Americans specifically have been united in collective memory at times of national transition and in recognition of national grief. I noticed that it's been at those times that we've felt the powerful urge to undertake the work of memory more deliberately and forcefully. It was the cataclysmic losses from the Civil War that gave rise to Decoration Day, and the horrors of World War II that led to the creation of a nationwide Memorial Day, and the anguish of Vietnam that led the President of the United States to create a federal holiday which would be a national repository for American memory. The use of memory as a unifying, organizing force is, of course, primary to our lives as Jews as well. The unshakable will to remember, the charge to bear the weight of what has come before us, these are the things that make us who we are as a religious community. As Jews, we know that we can't adequately understand what is unless we spend some time immersed in what was. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel once wrote, we Jews have never prioritized the construction of castles or shrines or monuments. We have instead built cathedrals of time, soaring structures of memory that we've carried on our backs as we made our way through the wilderness. At our best, we Jews are master rememberers. And our obligation to remember the past isn't simply born out of displacement or loss. This has been our charge and our legacy for as long as the Jewish people has been a people. The Torah itself urges us repeatedly about the importance of memory. In the Bible, there are 169 different variations on the Hebrew root, which means to remember. 169 times in the Bible. Remember the covenant. Remember the commandments. Remember the Sabbath day. Remember that you were slaves. Remember how God set you free with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Do not forget. Remember, remember, remember. The chapters of the Torah that we'll read over the next few weeks describe the experience of the Israelites making their way through the decades-long period between their redemption from slavery and their arrival in the Promised Land. Mount Sinai has now receded far behind them, and they have countless miles of wilderness wandering ahead of them before they will arrive at the home which God has promised. These long travels give God plenty of time to provide the Israelites with a long list of assurances designed to encourage them to uphold all of the commandments. If they will remain faithful to the covenant, if they will remember loyally, God promises they will be rewarded generously. And what's the reward? The Torah teaches, God says, I will remember my covenant with Jacob. I will remember also my covenant with Isaac and also my covenant with Abraham. So if you notice what's happened here, the Torah teaches that the reward for our memory is God's memory. Human remembering and divine remembering are intertwined. Religious memory happens in those two separate ways that flow in two opposite directions. We remember, and God does too. Our memory is the criterion by which Israel is judged. We're instructed to remember God and recall the commandments. And it's also the reward reserved for us if we do what is asked of us. God will remember us back and recall the covenant as well. Memory's reward is memory. As part of our relationship with God, we agree to construct cathedrals in time, and in exchange, God agrees to maintain those structures and fill them with yet more precious memories. There's one other idea I want to offer in refining our understanding of what religious memory looks like. In that verse I just read to you, in which God vows to recall the covenant with our ancestors, God says, "I will remember my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham." Jacob, Isaac, Abraham. So it's interesting, right? Because you will notice that normally when we name the patriarchs, we list them in the order in which they lived: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But here in this verse, God names them backwards: Jacob, Isaac, Abraham. So why is the verse written that way? Why are the names of the patriarchs listed in reverse order? Did God forget what order they lived in? I don't think that's the answer. I think instead what's happening is that the Torah is trying to teach us something specific about the nature of religious memory. I think it wants to demonstrate to us that the kind of memory that the Torah is talking about isn't the ability to recall a set of facts or a list of names and dates. Instead, it's guiding us to develop a kind of spiritual memory that draws a connection between who we are today and how we are connected to the massive presence of history gathered behind us. The commandment to remember the Sabbath day, for example, isn't about making sure you've got your calendar set right so that you notice it's Tuesday and not Saturday. That commandment is designed as a hedge against complacency, an incentive toward deep personal and communal awareness, so that when we remember Shabbat, we're remembering that the holiness of this Shabbat is every bit as sacred as the miraculous account of divine repose on the seventh day after the creation of the cosmos. To remember means making the past real by identifying the lines of connection that bind those days to our own days. Jewish memory is less about learning history and more about actualizing history. It's about remaining carefully and systematically connected and centered on spiritual truth. Because by doing that, we re-experience the Jewish drama of Jewish history in every moment. By doing that, we do what we can to make the past present. So friends, we are entering together now a holiday weekend when we're called upon, both as Jews and as Americans, to be rememberers. This is a time when we're asked to activate our memory as a collective community. And as we do so, my prayer is that we will all be strengthened by our spiraling paths that trace curly-Q traces in and through and back toward the Torah. Let us be emboldened by our nation's history and by our spiritual legacy to act as architects of cathedrals in time. Friends, on this holiday weekend, let us remember to remember, and let those memories inspire us so that this Shabbat and every day will be for us a true memorial day. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.